Good morning. Welcome to Time in His Word. How do you plan your day out? Do you sit down and write down on a piece of paper, I'm going to do this and this and this, kind of mark the times you expect to spend on them? Or do you just get a rough idea? I need to accomplish these 3 items today, sometime today, between the time I get up and the time I go to bed. How do we utilize our time for the day? Because we all have the same amount, 24 hours. And then you figure about 10 hours of that, somewhere in that neighborhood for, sleep in that. So you're down to 14 hours for the day to get things accomplished. A couple hours to eat, lunch, breakfast, and supper if you eat 3 meals. So how do you plot out your day? For me, I don't have much choice. Once I start my logbook, I've got 14 hours to complete my day, and then I'm done. And if I don't make it to where I need to be at the end of the day in order to deliver tomorrow, that's just too bad. That's just the way it works in our industry. Well, yesterday I got to the shipper and I had five hours left of my day, roughly. So I had plenty of time to load and almost get to where I needed to deliver this morning. And the shipper took their sweet time. So when I left out of there, and there was no overnight parking there, which makes another issue because I was down to a little less than 2 hours before I was done. And I'm in the back roads of Mississippi, and you just don't park somewhere. So I ended up having to draw. I started towards where I've got to deliver today up in Missouri. And I eventually ended up on the shoulder of a ramp, getting back up onto the highway with, I think I had 20 minutes left of my time. Once I run out of time, then that throws a red flag in the office. And then the next day, which would have been today, I would have to visit with the lady that watches our logs and explain to her why I ran out of time before I parked. But the industry also recognizes shippers and receivers don't always have parking for drivers when they're finished and out of time. So there's an allotment made for there, but then there's rules about how you use that time. But what I'm getting at is we can pretty much control our days. We can control what we want to do, who we want to listen to, all that kind of stuff. The other day I used the verse out of Matthew about all you are heavy laden, and how when I come to the South, that reminds me of the gentleness of the passages and the gentleness of the Savior we serve. But the flip side of that is, in Matthew, the 24th chapter, verses 35 and 36 says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone." So while we do have control over what we're going to do each and every day, the time that we are going to be here on earth, we have no control over that. We have no idea when our time on earth is going to end. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, we don't know. So we've got to utilize our time to the best of our ability. And what I'm getting at is that if you don't know Jesus as your personal Savior and have followed Him in baptism, and something were to happen, you know where you'll spend eternity. It won't be in heaven. But then our God is also waits for us. He's waiting for us. He doesn't want anybody to But in John 3, verse 18, he said he believes in him. Let's see, 17, "For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but the world might be saved through him. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe has been judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. So we need to utilize our time, and we need to figure out today whether we want to accept Christ as our personal Savior, or if something were to happen, we know where we'll spend eternity. But by the same means, God's not going to force himself on you or me, but he's always there willing and to take us in. So as you go through the day, just think about that. If you've not accepted Jesus as your personal Savior, and something were to happen today, where will you spend eternity, knowing that it was in your power to determine where you will spend eternity? Because God's already said, you know, if we believe in him and accept him, then we'll spend eternity with him. But that, again, it all boils down to choice. Our choice, how we're going to do things, how we're going to use, you know, back to the time issue. It's really important that if you haven't accepted Christ, you need to, because like I said, if something were to happen today, do you know where you'll spend eternity? Without a shadow of a doubt.